Welcome back. Today we're continuing the discussion around teaching our kids, helping them to grow, and working through conflict. Problem solving, like we talked about in the last class, is one really useful tool for working through issues that come up in life with our kids. Whether they're having trouble getting ready in the mornings or constantly fighting with siblings, you can work together to figure out what's going on and what to do about it. And even with non-recurring problems like not wanting to leave the park one day or struggling with a tough piece of homework, we can empower our kids to share what's going on, persevere through hard things, and ask for help when needed. Now, before we get into more on how to teach, we need to first look at what we want our kids to learn. For generations before us, the ultimate goal of parenting was instant obedience. Children were to do what they were told right away, no questions asked. Oh, and they were supposed to be happy about it too, right? And even today, many of us have adopted this as our primary aim without even thinking twice about it, because it's what we've known. Back in a time when life looked like going to work in a factory or just doing the work your parents did for your whole life, all you really needed to know to make a living was how to do what you were told, or how to do what you've always done. That's not the world we live in anymore, though. And like many things, this goal has outlived its usefulness and now causes more problems than it helps. One of those problems being the lingering idea that our only option is to live a life of doing what others tell us to do, regardless of what we want. But there's a reason it's so common to ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because there is more than one way to be, more than one way to provide for your needs, more than one way to live. The goal of getting our kids to obey, or to listen as we call it today, above all else, is just a way to make us feel less powerless, give us an outlet for our feelings, and make us feel more in control. Our way of getting what we never did in our own childhoods. Many of us didn't have the parents we needed. And that realization can be one of the hardest parts of becoming the parent you want to be. As you learn all these new things your parents never knew, the pain of the past comes to the surface. You may even feel as if you're still looking for that adult to come take care of you and give you everything that you never got. It hurts, and it's okay to let it hurt. Your parents did the best they could with what they had at the time. They may have even tried really hard to give you a better life than they had. There doesn't need to be any blame here. It can be true both that they loved you and that their expression of love didn't feel like love to you. It can be true both that they were good parents and that some of the things they did were harmful to you. Give them the same grace you would want your kids to give you. And allow yourself to feel. Grieve the loss of the childhood you didn't have. A lot of us feel angry at our parents for a while as we release what we could never express before. If you're pissed, know that it doesn't mean you'll feel that way forever. For now, yes, but as you give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, those strong emotions will dissipate, and you can absolutely come back to a place of peace. You really may be reparenting yourself as you parent your own children. Think about what little you needed and give that to yourself now. And then give your kids what they need now. So what is your objective for your parenting? What do you want your kids to learn? Get out your worksheet now titled Teaching and answer this first question. What is your main goal when it comes to what you want your kids to learn? What do you want to instill in them? One of my primary goals is to raise kids who believe in themselves, who know who they are and have dreams and aspirations for themselves and the world, and who have the skills to get them where they want to go, like curiosity, resilience, or effective communication. What is your intention? Who do you want to raise? Pause here if you need to think about it and write down your answer. Now we're going to talk about how to reach that goal. What do you need to do? Who do you need to be if this is where you want your kids to go? Let's dive into a scenario here. Your child has made a mess in the kitchen and you've asked her to clean it up, but she's not doing it. You want her to learn responsibility. You want her to clean up after herself, but she's not having it. So what do? Well, you don't want to have to do it for her, and you feel like it would be like letting her get away with something, not teaching what you want to teach if you just let it slide. So maybe you threaten. If you don't do something about this mess, you're not going to your friend's house tonight. She reacts. But Mom, that's not fair. Things escalate until you're both yelling at each other, and finally you tell her to go to her room. And there's no way she's getting to see her friends after how disrespectful she was to you. What just happened in that situation? Your intentions were good. You wanted your child to learn to be responsible for her own stuff. But the method you ended up using didn't get you there. In fact, it got you somewhere entirely different, teaching something far from what you started out wanting to. Because this is the moment your child is trying to make sense of what just happened. This is where beliefs like, my parents are against me, or no one can understand me, or I can never get what I need, bad things always happen to me, begin to form or strengthen. Now, especially with younger kids, this method might work in the sense that threats could drive them to the desired behavior. They may clean up the mess, but you're still not teaching what you wanted to teach. That child is not learning self-responsibility. They're learning to keep themselves safe. Like we talked about with regulation, punishment or threat can send a child right into fight or flight. They do what they have to do to avoid being hurt, abandoned, having something taken from them, etc. So when our parenting tools include things like shaming, timeouts, spanking, giving a consequence, adding chores or taking away privileges, even rewarding or incentivizing, we're not helping our children to develop character traits. We are instilling fear. And this could be easy to miss because fear doesn't always look like fear. How many of us learned to hide our emotions because it wasn't safe to express them? Have you ever had to have a good attitude even when something was really bothering you? Sure, we can learn to not let our feelings control our lives, but we can do that with healthy emotional regulation, or we can do that out of survival necessity. So making a child sit by themselves, leaving them alone in their time of need, fear of abandonment, physically hurting a child, fear of pain, taking away something they love, fear of loss, giving something they love if they do what you want them to do, fear of failure or missing out. When we use fear as a teacher, it may appear to work on the surface. The behavior may change, but it isn't addressing the heart of the issue. And here's the thing about fear. We don't just grow out of it. Children who learn how to live and behave through fear become adults who don't know how to say no because they were never allowed to, can't handle conflict with others because they only learned to avoid it, don't know how to express their feelings because they had to be suppressed, or can't pursue what they love because it's too risky to explore something new, all because of fear. So let's go back to our example of the child making a mess in the kitchen. You wanted her to learn to be responsible for cleaning up after herself. But sometimes we become so focused on our goal that the fear of not achieving that goal ends up as our driving force. You're afraid of what will happen if she doesn't clean up this mess. Will that encourage laziness? Will she never learn to be responsible? What's going to happen when she has a house of her own? No one will want to come over because it'll be disgusting. She won't be able to function in society. How will she live? She has to learn this now. See how easily our minds can take us into our lower brain. We may not even be conscious of it, but now we're coming from a goal of survival instead of teaching responsibility. So let's back up. How can we get these values into our kids without fear and force? Thankfully, there are a lot of ways, all uniquely customizable to you and your family. So number 1, modeling. We've touched on this before. Our kids learn by watching us. So we ourselves need to become who we want them to be. If we want them to be kind, we should be kind to ourselves, to our partner, to our kids, to our in-laws, even behind their backs. Number 2, problem solving. Like we talked about in the last class, working together with our kids to figure out what's going on and what to do about it. If they're struggling to clean up after themselves, see what they need to be able to succeed in that. And 3, help. Maybe they want to be responsible and yet feel they got in over their head with this one and it's overwhelming. Then you get to teach self-responsibility, asking for or accepting help, and what it looks like to care for others too. 4, play. Have fun with it or make it a game. Dr. Karen Purvis, founder of the TCU Institute of Child Development, once shared that it takes approximately 400 repetitions to create a new synapse or connection in the brain, unless it is done with play, in which case it takes between 10 and 20 repetitions. That's right, we learn more easily when we're having fun doing it. Now let me make a note here about rewards, because there is a distinction that can be made. Creating an incentive for your child to try and get them to do something is all motivated by you and what you want, and comes with the loss of that reward if the desired outcome isn't received, or could be terribly confusing if it's given anyways. On the other hand, if I'm working really hard and decide it would be nice to do something fun when I'm finished. That's great. I can do that for myself. I have something to look forward to now, and it's all under my control. Likewise with our kids, we can teach them that sometimes it might help when we don't feel like doing something to plan what's next. Maybe cleaning up one mess means I'll have space to play with something else. Or maybe after doing laundry, I'm going to sit down to read a book and have some tea. I think rewards can be one of those tricky areas with a fine line between what's helpful and what's not. And maybe setting up an incentive for myself would help me to reach my goal, but for my child, it would actually make it harder. It's best to just evaluate where your intentions are, what your child needs, and then figure out what will do the most good in your current circumstances. Okay, back to play. How can we teach through play? One way would be just role playing. Let them pretend to be you and you pretend to be them, or play with characters. Practice asking for what you need or what to do when you're angry. Just make it fun and allow room for your child's imagination and to let them joke about what you don't want them to learn. All right, number 5. You can also read books or watch videos or just talk about it. What does their favorite TV character say about this? Hear from different points of view and then talk about what you think and what your child thinks. What do these traits you're trying to teach look like to them? How do they think they can make that a bigger part of themselves? 6. Explain why instead of just what. This is something we'll discuss more in the next lesson. But if we only tell our kids what to do or not do instead of why, the method instead of the reason behind it, we're not getting at the heart of what we want them to know. What happens in situations where the specific what doesn't apply? Like, say you tell your kids not to talk to strangers. Then you meet someone new and tell them to say hi. What's going on in their head? That's super confusing for a kid. When my oldest daughter was younger, we talked with her about secrets. We wanted her to know that she could tell us anything, even if someone told her not to. Having had bad experiences as kids that we didn't tell our parents about, we wanted to be a safe place for her to come when something made her uncomfortable or didn't seem right or even just bothered her. But what we communicated is basically that we don't do secrets. We can hide something as a surprise, but we don't keep secrets. Well, these situations would come up where she didn't know what to do with that. Like one time, we were at my brother's coffee shop, and one of the employees was trying to include her in something special by asking, "Hey, want to know a secret?" She was so worried and had no idea what to do about it. 'Cause all she knew was that we don't do secrets. And this would happen occasionally in similar situations. Maybe someone was trying to make a joke with her or clue her into something she hadn't noticed. Then finally, my parents had gifted our kids this subscription creative box that would come in the mail every month. And it would have things they could build or paint or whatever. And one month, the box came, and what was in it? A secret agent spy kit. Yeah, I felt pretty stupid. And I knew then that it was time to have a new conversation about secrets and our real motivation. And that's the great thing, really. You can always learn something and just come back and talk about it again. My daughter still uses this as an example sometimes. Like that time you were wrong about secrets? Yes, like that. Good thing we're always learning. So here's number 7. Let your children be where they are. Building these things in them that we want to see is a process. We don't just decide, hey, I want my kid to be generous, and suddenly they've got it all down. It takes time to grow. And the way that quality presents itself will evolve over time. So your young child buying you a present might look like them getting you a toy that they want to play with you. They want to spend time with you, and that's what they think of when giving you a gift. That doesn't mean that they're selfish or only thinking of themselves or need to learn what giving is really about. That's just what generosity can look like at this stage. Let that be enough. And finally, number 8. Create an environment where it is safe to learn. And that means where it's okay to fail and mess up and make mistakes and be less than perfect. There's not going to be any shame or punishment or ridiculous expectations. Make your family a space where everyone is growing together, where you help each other, where you can each try new things, explore and experiment, where you can celebrate progress. This place where it's okay to just be you, wherever you are at on your journey. We have been so conditioned to believe that teaching and learning has to happen in a certain way. That we can't, or our kids won't learn without whatever it is. And we miss what's been inside of us all along. Think of a baby just sort of knowing how to nurse, learning who his family is, learning to make sounds and speak, learning to crawl and walk. We have in us this innate ability and desire to learn and grow and become. Some of us just might need to remember it's there and let it out. Now, the rest of your teaching worksheet is for you to complete after this recording. Take the time to really think about where you want to go with your kids and how you can get there. In the next lesson, we'll be talking about your values. So as you're thinking about your goals, begin making a note of the things that are important to you and your family. We'll be discussing that and more, so come ready to learn. I hope you're seeing some positive change in your life right now, even if it's challenging. You're doing a lot. Thank you for investing this time and energy into yourself and your family. You are worth it.